He said he'd be late again, just like the night before, just like every other night lately. Work's been crazy, he mumbled, adjusting his tie, eyes flicking anywhere but mine. I nodded, forcing a smile, pretending not to notice how distant he'd become. But that night, something in his voice cracked. Late again? I asked softly. Daniel, it's been weeks. You're never home for dinner anymore. He avoided my gaze, pretending to look for his keys. You know the new project, honey. I don't have a choice. Something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the way he used the word honey, forced, hollow, like it didn't belong in his mouth anymore. I watched him leave, his cologne lingering in the doorway. The silence after the door shut was heavier than usual. I don't know why, but I picked up my phone and opened the family tracker app, the one we both installed years ago after that car accident scare. I never checked it before. But tonight, something inside me whispered, "Look." The little blue dot blinked for a few seconds, and then settled far away from his office. My breath caught in my throat. The address wasn't familiar. Not the office, not a client's place, just a quiet residential street across town. For a moment, I told myself it was fine. Maybe he was visiting a coworker. Maybe his car just stopped there. But my fingers wouldn't stop shaking. That was the moment everything started to crack. Soft inhale. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Because what I'm about to tell you still makes my heart tremble. For the next hour, I stared at that blinking dot. It didn't move. Not once. My mind spiraled. Maybe he had a flat tire. Maybe he stopped for food. But then the dot moved again, only a few blocks, then stopped outside the same house. A house. My hands grew cold. My tea sat untouched beside me as I kept refreshing the screen like a madwoman. The clock ticked past midnight. He finally came home, smiling faintly, smelling of rain and something faintly floral, a scent that wasn't mine. Rough day? I whispered. He yawned, kissed my forehead. You have no idea. I looked into his eyes, searching for guilt, but all I saw was calm, practiced calm. He didn't know that his calmness felt like a knife against my chest. That night, as he slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling. The sound of his breathing used to comfort me. Now it sounded like a stranger. I turned away, clutching the blanket, trying to remember when we'd stopped being us. The next day, I told myself I'd let it go. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it was harmless. But that voice, that quiet, trembling voice inside me, said, no, something's wrong. So that evening, when he left again, I tracked him once more, and again, the same address appeared. This time, my blood ran cold. I grabbed my keys and jacket before my mind could argue with my heart. My hands were trembling as I drove across town, following the GPS like I was chasing the truth. The closer I got, the more my stomach twisted. It was a small, neat house with white curtains and flower pots by the window. A car, his car, was parked outside. I stopped 2 streets away, heart hammering so loud I thought someone could hear it. Through the dim light of the window, I saw him, my husband, my Daniel, sitting at a table, laughing. And across from him sat a woman, young, beautiful. Her hand brushed his as they talked. He didn't pull away. He smiled. My vision blurred. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. I pressed my palm against my mouth to stop the sound that was crawling up my throat. The world around me went silent. It felt like watching someone else's life, not mine. Leah. Ned toward her, said something I couldn't hear, and she laughed. That soft, intimate laugh that once belonged to me. Something inside me broke. I drove home without remembering how. The road lights blurred into streaks of white and gold as tears ran down my face. My fingers were numb on the steering wheel. When I reached home, I sat in the car for 10 minutes before I could move. The house looked the same. calm, still, faithful, but inside, everything was already ruined. I went straight to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection didn't even look like me. Pale, empty eyes, trembling lips, a woman who'd given everything, and still wasn't enough. That night, he came home late again. "Hey," he said casually, dropping his jacket on the chair. "You're still up?" I looked at him from the couch, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just couldn't sleep." He poured himself a glass of water. "You shouldn't wait up for me, you know. I'll probably be even later tomorrow. The team's under pressure." "The team," I said, my voice barely steady. He nodded, not looking up. "Yeah, big project. You know how it is." I nodded too, slowly. "Of course, Daniel. I know how it is." He didn't even hear the pain behind my words. I didn't confront him that night. I wanted to. Every bone in my body screamed to ask who she was, but something told me, wait, watch. Because if I spoke now, he'd just deny it. So I waited. The next few days, I acted normal. I cooked his favorite meals. I laughed when he talked about work. I ironed his shirts, though my hands shook every time I touched them. But deep down, something in me was quietly dying. Every time I saw his name light up on his phone, I felt sick. Every meeting he mentioned sounded like a lie. I started noticing the little things, his cologne changing, his new haircut, the way he checked his phone in the bathroom. He thought I was blind, but I was watching every move. One evening, he came home humming a tune. I was in the kitchen, staring at a pot of soup that had long stopped boiling. He leaned against the doorway. "Smells good." "Does it?" I said quietly. "Yeah, you always know how to make my day better." I turned to him, my heart trembling with both love and anger. "Daniel, do you remember when we first met? You said you'd never lie to me." He froze for a second, then smiled, too casually. "Of course I remember. Why?" I forced a laugh. "No reason. Just wondering if you still mean it." He frowned. "Of course I do." I looked away before the tears betrayed me. That night, when he went to shower, I picked up his phone from the table. I hesitated. I'd never done that before. My fingers hovered, shaking. I opened his messages. There it was. Her name. Sophie. The screen was filled with words that made my stomach twist. "I miss you already. Tonight was perfect. Can't wait to see you again." The phone slipped from my hand. My chest burned as if someone had ripped the air out of me. When he came out of the bathroom whistling, I was still sitting there, staring at the phone. He froze. "You went through my phone?" I didn't look up. "Yes." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I can't believe this, Anna. You don't trust me?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Don't trust you? Daniel, I tracked your car. I saw you at her house." His face went pale. For a moment, silence filled the room like smoke. Then he said, "It's not what you think." "Oh, then tell me," I whispered. "What is it, Daniel? Is she your client? Your friend? Your new project?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His silence said more than any lie could. I stood up, my legs shaking. "I gave you everything. My time, my youth, my love. And this is what I get? A ghost of a husband who calls someone else sweetheart?" He stepped closer. "Anna, please, it just happened. I didn't mean—" "Didn't mean to," I interrupted. "You went there for weeks, Daniel. Oh, you planned it. You lied to my face. Every night you looked me in the eye and said you were working late." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "No, you're sorry you got caught." The words hung between us like a blade. He didn't say anything else. He just stood there, staring at the floor, while I walked past him, tears falling silently onto the cold tiles. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the rain fall against the glass. I replayed every memory, the laughter, the promises, the nights we talked about growing old together. All of it felt like scenes from someone else's life now. In the dim light, I realized something painful. The man who once swore to protect my heart was the one who shattered it. And yet, even in that pain, part of me still loved him. That was the cruelest part. I whispered to myself, why wasn't I enough? No answer came, only silence. The next morning, I looked at him across the breakfast table. He tried to talk, but I couldn't. My voice refused to come out. He left quietly, like a man escaping a crime scene. When the door closed, I finally broke down. My sobs filled the empty kitchen, echoing off the walls. The mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. Tiny pieces of what used to be whole. I knelt, picking up the shards with trembling fingers, whispering, "This is us, Daniel. This is what's left." A small cut formed on my finger. A drop of blood fell, bright, sharp, real. And for the first time, I realized how deeply I'd been bleeding on the inside long before today. Days turned into weeks, and though he still came home, it was different. We were two strangers sharing a roof. He stopped calling her, maybe guilt, maybe fear. But I knew the connection was still there. Secrets don't die overnight. I became quiet, detached. I went through the motions, cooking, cleaning, smiling for the neighbors. But inside, I was hollow. One evening, he came home and placed his hand on mine. "I'll fix this, Anna. I promise." I pulled my hand away. "You can't fix what you broke, Daniel. Some things can't be glued back together." He looked at me helplessly. "I love you." I met his eyes and whispered, "No, you loved the woman I used to be, the one who didn't know." And that was the truth. Because once you see the lie, you can never unsee it. That night, as I lay in bed beside him, staring into the dark, I realized something that would change everything in the chapters to come. If he could lie so easily, what else was he hiding? The GPS showed me where he went, but my heart, it was about to show me who he truly was. The morning after I found his messages, the world looked the same, but nothing felt the same. Daniel poured his coffee, humming softly, as if last night never happened. I sat there, watching the steam rise between us like a wall. He smiled faintly. "You're quiet today." I forced my lips to move. "Didn't sleep much." He nodded. "You worry too much. Things will be fine." Fine. That word hit me like a slap. I wanted to scream, "You destroyed everything," but instead, I stirred my tea and stayed silent. He kissed my forehead before leaving for work, his touch colder than winter glass. The door closed behind him, and I felt the house exhale, empty again. I sat there for hours, just listening to the ticking clock. Each second sounded like a reminder of how long I'd lived beside a lie. I kept telling myself I was strong, that I could handle it, but the truth was, I didn't even know who I was anymore. At noon, my sister called. "Anna, you sound off. Are you okay?" I hesitated. "I'm fine, really. Just tired." She sighed. "Tired from loving too much, huh?" Those words broke something inside me. I bit my lip until I tasted blood, trying not to cry. That evening, Daniel texted me, "Working late again. Don't wait up." I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. I could already picture where he was. The same quiet street, the same little house was. With flower pots by the window. But I didn't go there this time. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in the dark, the GPS open on my phone. I watched his blue dot blink and stop at that house again. I whispered, "Go ahead, Daniel. Bury what's left of us." When he finally came home, it was past midnight. He smelled of rain and someone else's perfume, that same faint floral scent that now haunted my lungs. He walked in, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Still awake?" he asked. I didn't answer. He sat beside me on the couch, touching my hand. "Anna, we can get through this. I made a mistake. I don't know how it happened. I pulled my hand back. You don't know how? People don't fall into someone else's arms by accident, Daniel. He sighed. Please, don't make it harder. I ended it. I looked at him sharply. You ended it, so you admit it happened. He froze. I'm trying to be honest now. I laughed bitterly. Now? After months of lies? His face fell, but he didn't answer. That silence said more than any confession could. For the next week, our home turned into a stage. We acted out the parts, husband, wife, normal life, but the truth hung between us like smoke we couldn't clear. He left early every morning and came home late. I stopped asking why. I just watched, like a ghost haunting her own life. One night, I cooked dinner, his favorite, chicken with rosemary, hoping maybe we could talk. He came home, glanced at the table, and said, I already ate. I stared at him, my voice trembling. You used to love this. He shrugged. I wasn't hungry. Something inside me shattered again, quietly this time. Days blurred together. I moved through them like I was underwater, everything slow, muffled, unreal. Friends called, I ignored them. Neighbors waved, I smiled faintly. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I found a receipt in his pocket. 2 dinners, 1 wine, downtown restaurant, tea. He date-matched one of his late nights. I stared at that paper for a long time. Then I folded it neatly and put it in a box with the screenshots, the GPS images, the text messages, my little archive of heartbreak. Each piece felt like proof, not just of his betrayal, but of my blindness. That night, he came home humming again. I looked up at him, the box hidden behind me. Daniel, do you even see me anymore? He frowned. Of course I do. You're my wife. I nodded slowly. Then why do I feel like a stranger in my own marriage? He didn't answer. He just walked past me. The sound of his footsteps faded down the hall, leaving a silence that screamed. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at our wedding photo. We looked so happy. 2 people who thought love was enough. I touched the frame gently and whispered, Where did we go wrong? The photo didn't answer, but my heart did. When trust left, love followed. I spent that day cleaning, like scrubbing the floors could wash away the memories. At some point, I opened the bedroom window and the wind blew through the curtains. For the first time in weeks, I breathed deeply. The air felt new, even if my life wasn't. But peace never lasted long. Around 6, Daniel called. Hey, I'll be late again, he said. Something in me snapped. Of course you will, I muttered. What? Nothing, I said quickly. He sighed. Anna, I'm trying, okay? You're not making it easy. Trying? My voice cracked. You're trying to erase what you did with the same lips that lied to me. Please, he whispered. Don't start again. Then stop giving me reasons to. He hung up. I stared at my phone, tears rolling down my cheeks. The word again echoed in my mind. Don't start again. But he was the one who never stopped. That night, I couldn't stay still. I walked into the living room, sat on the couch, and looked around. And the house we'd built together, the walls, the furniture, the little memories hiding in corners. It all felt foreign now. Then my eyes landed on his jacket hanging by the door. Something made me reach for it. Inside the pocket, I found another receipt. Same place, same woman's name scribbled on the side. Sophie. My heart sank. So he hadn't ended it after all. When he came home later, I didn't say a word. He smiled awkwardly, as if nothing had happened. Dinner smells good, he said. I turned off the stove. You can tell Sophie that next time. His face went white. What? I held up the receipt. You're not even careful anymore. He stepped closer. Anna, please listen. It's not. I cut him off. Stop lying. I'm tired of living in your script, Daniel. Every day feels like I'm married to a ghost. Someone who looks like you, talks like you, but isn't you anymore. He rubbed his face, his voice breaking. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just needed to feel something again. I whispered, You could have told me. I would have fought for us. He looked away. I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. Then what do you call this? Tears filled my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. I walked past him, into our room, and closed the door. Behind that door, I finally let myself cry. Not the soft kind, the kind that tears through you until your body shakes. The next few days we barely spoke. We moved around each other like strangers sharing borrowed space. I began to notice how quiet the house was when he wasn't home and how heavy it felt when he was. One morning he left early for a meeting. I watched him from the window, that same dark coat, that same fake purpose. The moment his car turned the corner, I sat down and whispered, I can't live like this. I opened my laptop and searched for lawyers in town, then closed it quickly. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I needed to understand if there was anything left to save. That night, I decided to test him. I said, Daniel, I think I'll visit Mom for a few days. He looked almost relieved. That's a good idea. No hesitation. No, I'll miss you. No, please stay. Just relief. I smiled faintly. All right then. He kissed my cheek, distant and polite. Drive safe. When he left for work, I didn't pack a single thing. I waited an hour, opened the GPS again, and there he was, the same address lighting up on the screen. My heart didn't break this time. It just went quiet. I whispered, I knew it. That evening, I sat by the window as the sun disappeared. The house was silent, except for the ticking clock and the faint sound of my breathing. I thought about how love can rot quietly, like fruit left too long on a table. It looks fine from afar, until you touch it. When he came home late that night, I was still awake. He looked tired. You didn't go to your mom's? I met his eyes. No. I decided to stay and see how long you can keep pretending. His jaw tightened. Anna, enough. No, I said softly. Enough was 3 months ago. Now it's just pity. He tried to speak, but I raised my hand. Don't say sorry again. You've used that word so much it's lost all meaning. He sank into a chair, face buried in his hands. I don't know what you want from me. I want the truth, I said. All of it. He looked up slowly. You can't handle it. I smiled sadly. I already am. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us was thick, heavy with everything we didn't say. Finally, he whispered, I'm still seeing her. The words hung in the air like smoke. I nodded slowly. Thank you for finally saying it. He looked surprised. That's it? You're not angry? I've been angry for months, I whispered. Now, I'm just done. That night, I slept in the guest room. It felt strange, unfamiliar, but peaceful. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, realizing how quiet peace can be after years of noise. In the dark, I thought about how easily love can vanish, not with one fight, but with small lies, quiet betrayals, fading glances. It doesn't explode. It evaporates. The next morning, Daniel tried to make small talk. Want coffee? No, thank you, I said. He nodded, his shoulders slumped. I'll be late tonight. I smiled faintly. Of course you will. When he left, I whispered into the empty room. There's nothing left to wait for anymore. Days passed. He kept pretending. I kept existing. But deep down, something was shifting inside me. A quiet strength, a slow awakening. I began taking walks in the park again, breathing fresh air, watching children play. For the first time in months, I saw color in the world. One afternoon, As I watched the sunlight through the trees, I realized something simple yet powerful. I was still here, broken, yes, but alive. When I went home that day, I didn't check the GPS. I didn't look at his phone. I didn't wait by the door. I simply sat at the table, folded my hands, and whispered, "He's already gone. Now it's my turn." That night, as he walked in, I looked at him one last time, not with anger, but with clarity. Because somewhere between his lies and my silence, I had become a ghost too. But unlike him, I was ready to come back to life. I couldn't sleep that night. The air felt thick, like it was holding a secret that refused to breathe. Every tick of the clock sounded louder, heavier. My husband's side of the bed was empty again, and the sheets were cold. He had said he was working late. Again. But deep down, I knew. Something inside me, that quiet voice every wife has, kept whispering, "He's not where he says he is." I stared at the ceiling, fighting tears, until I finally grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking as I opened the GPS app I'd installed a week earlier, the one I told myself I'd never actually use. The little blue dot blinked on the screen. It wasn't near his office. It was across town, near the old Riverside Motel. My throat closed. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. For a moment, I froze. Then I whispered to myself, "No, not him. He wouldn't." But the dot didn't move. It just stayed there, still, like the truth itself had stopped running. That was the moment everything inside me broke. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I threw on a shawl, slipped my phone into my purse, and walked out into the night. The streets were empty, and the cold air cut through my chest. Every step felt heavier, every breath sharper. When I reached the motel, my hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped my keys. His car was right there, parked under a flickering light. For a long time, I just stood there, staring. The license plate, the dent on the bumper. It was all his. And then, I saw him. He stepped out of room 12. He wasn't alone. A woman followed him, younger, dressed in a silk blouse. She laughed softly, and he touched her arm the way he used to touch mine when we were newly married. My knees almost gave out. I held on to the side of a nearby wall to stop myself from collapsing. He said he was working late. I wanted to scream, to run at them, to throw the truth in his face, but my voice disappeared somewhere in the wind. Instead, I whispered, "So this is it. This is what I've been replaced with." They walked past me without noticing. I could smell his cologne, the one I bought for his last birthday. I watched them drive away together, and something inside me died quietly. I don't know how I drove back home that night. My body moved, but my heart stayed there, outside room 12. When I reached home, I sat in the dark living room, waiting. My fingers traced the edge of our wedding photo on the wall, the one where we both looked so happy, so sure of forever. At 1:47 a.m., the door creaked open. He walked in like nothing happened. "You're still up?" he asked casually, loosening his tie. I swallowed hard. "Working late?" He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "Yeah, you know how it is. Deadlines." I looked at him, really looked at him. There was a faint lipstick stain near his collar, barely visible in the dim light. My heart screamed, but I kept my face still. "You must be tired," I said softly. "There's food in the kitchen." He smiled, relieved. "You're the best, always taking care of me." He went into the kitchen. I sat there listening to the sound of plates clinking, like the sound of something breaking inside me over and over. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I couldn't look at him sleeping beside me. I went to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. My eyes were swollen, but strangely calm. That was when I made a promise to myself. If he could lie to me so easily, I could learn to pretend just as well. From that day on, I became an actress in my own home. I smiled when he talked about late nights. I packed his lunch with a kiss on the cheek. I listened when he said, "Don't wait up for me." But behind that smile, my mind was watching, studying. Every move, every excuse, every detail. One evening I saw his phone light up while he was in the shower. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you again tonight." I stared at it for a long time before placing it back exactly how I found it. My hands were ice cold. When he came out, I said, "Your phone buzzed." He smiled nervously. "Probably work." I just nodded. "Of course. Work." Every lie became a stone in my chest. I carried them all, silently. Then came the night I couldn't take it anymore. We were having dinner, and he was talking about a new client he needed to impress. His phone rang, and he excused himself to take it outside. Through the window, I could see him, his back turned, his voice low. I followed him quietly to the hallway and caught a few words that shattered me all over again. "Yes, I'll be there soon. Don't worry, she won't find out." My hand slipped, and my bracelet clattered to the floor. He turned, startled. Our eyes met. For the first time, I saw guilt, raw and clear. He stepped closer. "You were listening?" I didn't move. "How long?" I whispered. He blinked. "What?" "How long have you been seeing her?" His mouth opened, then closed. "It's not what you think." I laughed, a dry, broken laugh. "Then tell me, what do I think?" He rubbed his face, frustrated. "She's just a friend. We talk, that's all." "Friends don't meet at motels," I snapped. His eyes widened. "You followed me?" "Yes," I said, my voice trembling, because my heart already knew the truth. He looked away. Silence filled the room, heavy and cold. Then he muttered, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." My hands clenched. "You didn't mean for what? To destroy me? To make me question every word, every smile?" He stayed quiet. That was the night I saw the man I married disappear. The one who used to hold my hand during storms now stood like a stranger in our own home. I walked past him, went to the bedroom, and locked the door. All night, I sat there in the dark. The word truth kept echoing in my mind, but it no longer felt pure. It felt poisoned. The next morning, he tried to talk. "Please, let's not make this worse," he said. "Worse?" I whispered. "You already made it worse." He sighed, frustrated. "You've always been so emotional. You blow things out of proportion." That sentence, that one, burned through my chest. I stood up. "Do you know what's worse than betrayal? It's being told your pain is an exaggeration." He didn't respond. He just grabbed his keys and left for work. Or maybe for her. I didn't care anymore. Had entire day I moved like a ghost through my own house. The dishes, the laundry, the meals. I did them all, but I wasn't there. My mind was in pieces, replaying every lie he'd ever told. But by evening, something inside me began to shift. The tears stopped. The shaking eased. For the first time, I felt calm. Because I realized the truth had finally done its job. It had broken the illusion. That night, when he returned, I was sitting on the couch, the lights dimmed. He hesitated at the door. "You're still up?" "Yes," I said softly. "I wanted to talk." He looked tired. "Can it wait till morning?" "No," I said firmly. "It can't." He sighed and sat across from me. "Okay. What now?" I stared at him, the man I'd built a life with, the man who'd turned that life into a lie. "Now," I said, "you tell me the truth, all of it, every detail, and if you can't, don't bother sleeping here tonight." He swallowed hard. "You're serious?" "More than ever." There was a long silence. Then finally, he whispered, "Her name is Claire." My chest tightened. Hearing her name out loud made it real. He continued, It started at work. She listened to me when I felt invisible at home. Invisible. That word stabbed me deeper than any blade. "So I made you feel invisible?" I asked quietly. He looked down. "I'm not saying it's your fault. It just happened." I nodded slowly. Love doesn't just happen. Lies do. He didn't answer. When he tried to reach for my hand, I pulled away. "Don't. Please." He sat back defeated. "So what now?" I took a deep breath. "Now, I stop pretending. And so do you." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You can go. Stay wherever you've been staying, because tonight, this house doesn't belong to lies anymore." He stood up, anger flickering behind his eyes. "You'll regret this." I looked up at him, calm but firm. "No. I've already regretted everything that came before this." He stared at me for a moment, then left. The door slammed shut, echoing through the house. And just like that, silence returned, heavy but freeing. I sat there, breathing in the emptiness. It didn't hurt like before. It felt like healing had just begun. The truth had destroyed my marriage, but it had saved me. The next morning, the silence in the house was deafening. His side of the bed was empty again. But this time, I didn't expect him to come back. The curtain fluttered softly, the morning light falling over the picture frame on my nightstand, our wedding photo. For a moment, I just stared at it. The two smiling faces trapped behind glass looked like strangers now. I reached out to touch it, but my hand froze halfway. I whispered, "Was any of it real?" Then the frame slipped from my fingers and crashed onto the floor, the glass shattering into tiny, glittering pieces. That sound, sharp and final, echoed through the room like a verdict. I knelt down, staring at the fragments. His smile was split across the broken glass, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I just felt empty. The house smelled like coffee and memories I didn't want anymore. I went to the kitchen, started the kettle, and waited for the water to boil, but even the hiss of steam felt like it was mocking me. When the doorbell rang, I froze. It was him. He stood there, looking exhausted, holding a bunch of flowers. "Can we talk?" I stared at the flowers. Lilies, my favorite. He remembered. I stepped aside silently. He walked in, glancing around as if the house itself was accusing him. His eyes fell on the broken frame. He sighed. "You broke it?" I looked at him. "No," I said softly. "It broke itself." He rubbed his forehead. "Look, I know you're angry." "Angry?" I interrupted. "That word is too small for what I feel." He placed the flowers on the table. "I didn't sleep all night. I kept thinking about what you said." I crossed my arms. "And? I want to fix this," he said, voice trembling. "I made a mistake. I ended things with her." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. "You ended things with her? Like she was a project?" He frowned. "Don't twist my words." I stepped closer. "Then explain them. You lied to me. You broke your vows. And now you stand here like an employee asking for a second chance." He took a deep breath. "Because I still love you." I stared at him for a long time, trying to find truth in his eyes. But all I saw was fear. Fear of losing comfort, not love. "Love," I whispered, shaking my head. "If this is love, then I don't want it." He clenched his jaw. "You can't just throw away everything we've built." "You already did," I said. He slammed his hand on the table, startling me. "I said I'm sorry. What more do you want from me?" My voice broke. "I want my life back. I want the woman I was before I started doubting every word you said." Silence fell again. The flowers lay between us like a fragile peace offering. He looked at me with wet eyes. "You're not the only one who's hurting." Those words burned. Don't you dare make yourself the victim." He turned away, muttering, "You'll never understand." And that's when something inside me snapped. "I understand perfectly," I said coldly. "You cheated, you lied, and now you want me to clean up the mess because you can't live with the guilt." He turned back, his voice breaking. "I don't want to lose you." "You already did," I whispered. He left without another word. The door clicked shut, leaving behind the faint scent of lilies and regret. I sank onto the floor, the broken frame beside me, and whispered, "How did we get here?" That day, I moved through the house like a ghost. Every room felt like a graveyard of memories. The laughter in the living room, the dinners at the table, the nights when we dreamed together. But by evening, something inside me shifted again. The numbness turned into quiet strength. I picked up a broom and swept the glass shards into a dustpan. Each piece glittered in the light, like a tiny truth I could finally hold. Then I packed away the wedding photo, not to forget, but to move forward. Later that night, my son called. "Mom, are you okay? You sound different." I forced a small smile, though he couldn't see it. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just tired." He hesitated. "Is Dad there?" "No," I said quietly. "Not tonight." There was silence on the other end. Then he said, "You don't sound fine, Mom." I swallowed hard. Sometimes being fine just means surviving the day. After the call, I sat by the window. The night outside was calm, almost peaceful. I thought about everything I'd done for this marriage, the years, the sacrifices, the forgiveness. And for what? To become someone's afterthought? I looked down at my hands. They were rough, tired, but steady. For the first time, I realized how much strength they held. These hands had built a home, raised a child, held everything together when everything else fell apart. That's when I knew I didn't need him to fix what he broke. I could rebuild my life myself. A few days passed. He didn't call. I didn't either. Then one evening, as I was folding laundry, I heard the front door open. He walked in quietly, holding a small box. "I just came to pick up a few things." I nodded. "They're in the closet." He looked around, eyes lingering on the empty wall where our photo used to hang. "You took it down?" "Yes," I said softly. "It was time." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You've changed." I met his gaze. "No, I'm just done pretending." He didn't respond. He went to the bedroom, packed his clothes, and stood at the door for a long time before finally saying, "I hope someday you'll forgive me." I didn't say anything. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. After he left, I walked into the kitchen and saw the vase of lilies, now wilted, their petals drooping. I picked them up, carried them outside, and threw toward him into the trash. As the petals scattered in the wind, I felt something heavy lift from my chest. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. But peace didn't mean everything was fixed. The next morning, I found a letter on the doorstep. It was from him. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first line read, "If you're reading this, I just want you to know I never stopped loving you." I read every word, his apologies, his regrets, his memories of us. But when I reached the end, one sentence made my heart ache all over again. If I could go back, I'd never have left that night. I folded the letter and placed it inside the same box where I'd kept the broken glass. Then I whispered, "You can't go back. Neither can I." That evening, as I made tea, my reflection caught in the kettle's silver surface. The woman staring back wasn't weak anymore. She was tired, yes, but free. I remembered the shattered picture frame and smiled faintly. Maybe breaking things isn't always the end. Maybe it's the beginning of something real. As the tea boiled, my phone buzzed with a message from my son. "Love you, Mom. Just wanted to check on you." I replied, "Love you more. Don't worry, I'm stronger than I look." And I meant it. That night, I sat by the window again, watching the moonlight fall across the floor. The house was quiet, not lonely, just peaceful. I whispered to the silence, "Sometimes
You have to break to become whole again. The broken frame, the shattered glass, the silence. They weren't reminders of pain anymore. They were proof that I survived it. And as I closed my eyes, I knew this was just the beginning of a different story. Mine. The morning after I threw away the wilted lilies, I woke up to something I hadn't felt in months. Silence that didn't hurt. The house was still the same, but it felt different. Lighter, as if it was finally breathing again after holding its breath for too long. I made my coffee, sat by the window, and whispered, "Now what?" For years, my whole world had revolved
around being his wife, his partner, his support. But without him, who was I? I didn't have an answer. The phone buzzed with a message from my sister Claire. Heard everything. Pack a bag. Come stay with me for a while. I smiled sadly. She always knew when to step in. That same afternoon, I found myself driving with no destination. My hands gripped the wheel while the GPS on my phone repeated, "Recalculating? Recalculating." It almost made me laugh. For the first time, I realized my heart was doing the same thing. I had lost the map of my life, and now I was learning to find new roads. Halfway down the highway, I stopped at a gas station. The sun was harsh, the air dry, and my reflection in the window looked older, but calmer. A voice behind me said, "You look like you've seen better days." I turned. It was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes holding a cup of coffee. I forced a smile. "Rough week." She chuckled softly. "Aren't they all?" Then she pointed at my car. "You're going somewhere?" I hesitated. "Trying to." She nodded knowingly. "Sometimes the GPS can't help with that." Her words stayed with me long after she walked away. That night, I reached my sister's house, a cozy little place surrounded by tall pine trees. Claire ran to hug me before I could even close the car door. "You're finally here," she said, squeezing me tight. I let out a shaky breath. I didn't know where else to go. "You came to the right place," she said softly. "Now, you heal." The next few days passed quietly. Claire cooked, talked, and kept me distracted, but my mind still wandered back to the empty house, the letter, the broken frame. One evening, as we sat on her porch, she asked, "Do you still love him?" Her question hit hard. I took a long breath before whispering, "I think I love the man I thought he was." She nodded. "That's fair. I keep thinking if I'd been different, maybe he wouldn't have." My voice broke. "Stop right there," she said firmly. "You didn't break your vows. He did." Tears welled up. "Then why does it still feel like my fault?" "Because you cared too much," she said, "and people like you always think they could have fixed it." Her words cracked something open inside me. I cried quietly for a long time, and she just held my hand. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and went for a walk. The forest was misty, the road empty. I walked until I reached a small lake. The water was still, like glass. I picked up a pebble and tossed it in. The ripples spread across the surface, soft, slow, but unstoppable. It made me think about healing. Maybe that's how it worked. Small ripples that grow until the whole surface changes. When I got back, Claire handed me a box. "Something for you." Inside was a small GPS device, the old kind, not the phone app. I laughed. "Why?" She smiled. "Because you're going to drive. Go somewhere you've never been. No husband, no plans, just you and the road." I hesitated. "I can't just leave." "You already left," she said gently. "Now start living." That evening, I packed a few clothes, my journal, and a photo of my son. Then I hugged Claire tightly. "Thank you for being my anchor." She whispered, "Just promise you'll come back with stories." I smiled. "I will." As I started the car, the GPS screen blinked on. It said, "No route found." I whispered, "Good. I'll make my own." The road stretched endlessly ahead, long, open, and quiet. At first, I felt lost.
Then, with each passing mile, the air grew lighter. I drove through small towns, stopped at diners, spoke to strangers. One waitress told me, "You've got the eyes of someone who survived something big." I smiled. Maybe I have. At night, I stayed in small motels. Sometimes I'd sit by the window and write in my journal. I wrote about guilt, about forgiveness, about the strange peace that came from not knowing what's next. One entry simply said, "My heart has a GPS of its own. It knows where I bellows. Nang, even when I don't." A week later, I stopped at a coastal town I'd never visited before. The ocean roared like it was calling out to me. I stood by the shore, shoes in hand, feeling the cold waves crash against my feet. I whispered to the sea, "He doesn't define me anymore." The wind carried the words away, but I meant every one. I stayed in that town for 3 days, talked to locals, watched sunsets, learned how to be alone without being lonely. One afternoon, I got a call from my son. "Mom, are you okay? You've been quiet lately." I smiled softly. "I'm better than I've been in years." He sounded relieved. "Dad's been calling. He wants to talk." My chest tightened. "About what?" "He said he wants to apologize, properly this time." I was silent for a moment. "Maybe one day," I said gently, "but not today." After the call, I sat on a bench facing the sea. For years I'd waited for his words, his sorry, his understanding, but now I didn't need them. That realization felt like freedom. On my way back to the motel, I saw a small antique shop. Something in the window caught my eye. A wooden picture frame, simple but beautiful. I walked in and picked it up. The shopkeeper smiled. "That one's special, handmade." I traced the edge with my finger. "It looks strong." He nodded. "Even when it breaks, it's easy to mend." I smiled faintly. "I'll take it." That night, I placed a new photo inside. Me, standing by the ocean, smiling genuinely for the first time in years. As I looked at it, I whispered, "This time, the picture won't break." Weeks passed, and my road trip became more than an escape. It became a rediscovery. Every new town felt like another piece of myself returning home. One morning, I stopped at a quiet cafe, and the woman behind the counter said, "You've got that glow people get when they finally forgive themselves." I smiled. "Maybe it's what peace looks like," she nodded, "or what freedom feels like." That night, I drove back toward home. Not the same house, but the same city. I wasn't afraid anymore. The GPS voice said, "You have reached your destination." But I knew I hadn't. Not yet. Because the real destination wasn't a place. It was me. When I unlocked the door of my house, everything was still where I'd left it. But it didn't feel haunted anymore. I lit a candle, poured some tea, and sat quietly in the living room. On the table was the old broken frame. I smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you for breaking." Then I replaced it with the new one, my photo, my smile, my story. For years I had followed someone else's directions, thinking love meant losing myself, but now I knew. My heart had always had its own compass. I just never trusted it. As I sat there, the wind brushed against the curtains. The house no longer felt empty. It felt mine. I whispered to myself, the GPS of my heart. It never stopped working. I just stopped listening. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace, real, steady, and alive. The road had changed me, the pain had shaped me, but in the end, it brought me home, not to him, not to the past, but to myself. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and smiled. The world outside was quiet, the moonlight soft. My journey wasn't over. It had just begun, one heartbeat at a time.